Hey everybody, Tom Barnes, Chicago scene in the Logan Square neighborhood, in the actual Logan Square. This is the monument that is landmarked, and it is landmarked because of the efforts of a friend of mine. His name is Ward Miller. I'm going to talk to him in a second, but first, I wanted to give you a look at this because this is one of the fine things in Chicago, and you'll recognize this monument right here in the middle of Logan Square. And this is my friend Ward Miller with Preservation Chicago. How are you, Ward?
Just great, Tom. Thanks for having us today.
Absolutely. It's a beautiful day to be out here in Logan Square for sure, right?
Absolutely.
And talk about your involvement with the Chicago 7 and what Preservation Chicago does, because I think it's really important, because if it wasn't for the efforts that you did, this probably wouldn't be landmark that we're standing on right now.
Well, that's true, and thank you again for having us today. Our little organization, Preservation Chicago, is an amazing organization. We're a nonprofit dedicated to preserving the city's built environment, to encouraging its landmarks be honored and recognized as Chicago landmarks. So you'll see us a lot of times in and around Chicago, encouraging preservation of our historic buildings, both architecturally, historically, and culturally important places.
So for people who might not be familiar, what are some of the buildings that you have worked with in the past that they're like, oh my gosh, I had no idea that was so close to perhaps a wrecking ball or perhaps falling in further disrepair?
Well, let's talk about our most recent successes in the Emmett Till and Mamie Till Mobley House.
Yeah.
That particular landmark designation really did fall to us. We were responsible for writing the report, for doing the research, outreaching to the Till family, and also recognizing the building was vacant and facing an uncertain future with 4 vacant lots to its north. So we thought this story to be really important. And so oftentimes the Emmett Till story linked with the modern civil rights movement begins with a 14-year-old child getting on a train going to visit his relatives in Mississippi. But we really wanted to tell the story of Emmett the person, a child who had just graduated from 8th grade. Sometimes we sort of lose perspective on that, and what a wonderful child he was. And so that's really important. But some other landmarks that we've been involved in is the Seth Warner House in the Austin community. Seth Warner was an abolitionist. He had a music hall, and in 1853 had Frederick Douglass speak at his music hall, which is, by the way, on the side of the Daly Center downtown. And on the eve of it coming into landmarks was the 150th anniversary of the Chicago fire, and Seth Warner's hall was swallowed in the Chicago fire and burned with the rest of the central area of the city. So these are remarkable stories, but also buildings like the Marshall Field Store, the Palmer House downtown, the New York Life Building, which is now the Hotel Gray. Those are also part of our sort of collection of buildings, and we've contributed or pushed for landmark designation, along with the Catholic Church in the Bridgeport neighborhood, the Monastery of the Holy Cross, originally Immaculate Conception, and other wonderful sites. And of course, we were involved in the creation of the Logan Boulevards district, and also supported the Fulton Market landmark district.
Well, important things that are the very fabric of what Chicago is and the stories it tells. I mean, people have pride in the neighborhoods that they are from or that they live in currently. So these stories got to be told, and having the buildings there helps tell that story for sure. And every year, Preservation Chicago comes out with the Chicago 7, and this year is no exception. Why don't you run down the list of what you have for this year?
It's our 19th annual Preservation Chicago 7 Most Endangered. And of course, that's a play on the Abby Hoffman trial, the Chicago 7.
Yeah.
It's also a play on the 7 Chicago architects that were pushing back against Misesian modernism, the international style in the 1970s. So it has a lot of meaning to our city. But yes, this year's list is just as amazing as, well, it's wonderful because it represents all corners of the city. We have 2 buildings in the heart of the loop, known as the Century and Consumers buildings. These are 202 and 220 South State Street, State and Adams, State and Quincy Court, and the Government Services Administration, basically the federal government, picked these buildings up 15 years ago to protect the Federal Center and the courthouses from any type of mischief, if you will, after September 11th. And unfortunately, they picked them up and they were going to grow into these buildings. They were committed to renovating them. And unfortunately, that never happened. There was never the funding to do that. And then the need for this additional floor space just diminished, if you will.
Sure.
So we're looking at wanting to preserve these buildings. We've got a plan to make them an archive center. Archives don't need a lot of windows, especially those windows facing the Federal Center and the courthouse.
Yeah.
And we have this wonderful idea to bring an archive center to Chicago, and we have about 16 religious groups, religious orders that are interested in doing that, working with potentially DePaul and Loyola and all the universities in downtown Chicago. And we think this could be a really fabulous center that would bring people to the city.
Wonderful.
And, collections from around the nation.
Yeah, what else you got there? Run through the list real quick for me.
Absolutely.
I know we could talk about this all day, believe me.
I could. And I'm more than happy to. How much time do you have, Tom?
A few more minutes.
Yeah. All right, so we have public housing sites. So Cabrini Green row houses that have been empty for more than 24 years, 586 of them in a city that needs housing. Just to the east of here, Lathrop Homes, another housing project where we've been working to preserve the complex for 20 years, and the North Campus is done, and it looks beautiful.
Right on Clybourne there, right?
Right on Clybourne, with the who's who of architects and landscape designers like Jens Jensen, who was responsible in part for some of these boulevards that we're standing on right now. But CHA, the Chicago Housing Authority, is languishing. They're sitting on their hands, and these almost 1,000 units are just empty and vacant. And the question is why. Also, two buildings in Altgeld Gardens, a commercial building with a swooping roof by Keck and Keck, which was an early shopping center that should be restored, and a school building. The Chicago Board of Education wants to demolish a school building. It's part of a beautiful complex of school buildings from the 1940s, and an amazing series of buildings. Also on our list is Promontory Point in
I was
Hyde
shocked to
Park.
see that one.
Yes, they want to replace the stone revetments all the way around the perimeter of Promontory Point with concrete steps. And that really does take that sort of special quality and scale and proportion away, and it creates these sort of skateboard sterile ramps that we've seen elsewhere on the lakefront. This is the last section that it hasn't been impacted. So it's really important. We want to see a landmark designation of this and protect this Alfred Caldwell landscape and this Alfred Caldwell vision. He did a site in Lincoln Park, the Alfred Caldwell Lily Pond, which is landmarked. It's a beautiful place, also with stone walls. So this is of the same nature, if you will. We also have St. Martin de Tours, originally St. Martin de Tours, later Chicago Embassy Church at 59th and Princeton. This is that monumental Gothic, that just beautiful limestone Gothic building that you see from the Dan Ryan Expressway as you look up. A former Catholic church. It's been empty for a number of years now, about 3 years. We'd love to see this restored, rethought as a community center, concert hall, a combination of things that could happen there. The nice thing about these churches and these religious buildings is they can be repurposed for a lot of different things.
Yeah, we've seen it already throughout the city, some of these buildings being repurposed. I mean, that is another chapter of Chicago's history, for sure.
Exactly. And then we have a really neat little district on the far north side, the Peterson Avenue Mid-Century Modern District. All of these sort of smaller modernist buildings along Peterson and along Lincoln Avenue and along Sacramento and a little bit along California that are really remarkable structures that we think we'd like to see protected in some way, and encourage some guidelines for new construction in that building. It would honor this really wonderful district of small human scale buildings. The tallest building there is 6 stories. Most of them are 1 or 2 stories. So they've been overlooked and they've been replaced by strip malls and gas stations and buildings that just are not of the same character, and that's unfortunate. And then a group of buildings that are known as Moody Triangle. So this is Moody Church, if you will, and that triangular block bordered by North Avenue, LaSalle, and Clark Street.
Yeah.
And this includes Moody Church. It includes the Wintrust Bank, originally built in 1961 as the North Federal Savings Bank and considered for landmark designation in the past. The previous owner didn't want that. We'd like to see Wintrust and the current ownership look at landmarking both the bank building, Moody Church, which is a fabulous structure, but and they're committed to the site, but what do things look like in 10 years or 20 years? We think that these buildings should be landmarked. Also interesting, the Archway Standard Service Station at the corner, at that sort of pinnacle, if you will, of Clark and LaSalle. And with that beautiful swooping canopy that comes down to the ground, beautiful form. Of course, we'd love to see it remain as it is, as we do with most buildings. But if it's to be reused, and David Adage is charged with Fernhill and Moody Church in redeveloping the site, certainly that building and that structure could be reincorporated in something even larger if so desired.
Yeah, maybe not the most expensive gas in the city, right? Because that's what I tend to be reminded when I drive by at that place. But it is beautiful for sure in that whole area. For people who want to get involved with what you guys do, your mission, what's the best way for them to do that?
Well, come visit us at www.preservationchicago.org. Sign up for our free newsletter. It comes out each month. It's the month in review, so it comes out the week after the month is over, and it's 30 to 130 pages with all the things that we're touching or preservation projects throughout Chicago. Our service area is just the city of Chicago, so things that we're touching in Chicago, and it's really remarkable with also some really beautiful pictures. And we want you to get involved, so please get involved whenever you can. I'm Ward Miller. I'm Executive Director of Preservation Chicago. I'm one of the founders of the organization, along with a group of others, and we welcome you all.
Well, thank you, Ward. I appreciate it. I'll let you get back on your day because you just walked up this way from down that way, which is Logan Boulevard down there. This is your home, and congrats and continued success with the work that you do.
Thank you. I live in the district, and welcome to Logan Square, everybody.
Absolutely. That's the Chicago scene for today, TBARNAS at WGNTV.com. If you have a suggestion for the Chicago scene, that's tbarnes at WGNTV.com. Go over to the Preservation Chicago, see my friend Wade there.